everybody, to Survive in Advance on the Gruely True Sports Network. Survive in Advance is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. Make sure, if you want to bet the tournament games this weekend or anything else under the sun, you go to MyBookie.ag. You get a 50% cash bonus up to $1,000 if you use the promo code TGT50, or you go to thegruelytruth.net, click on the link at the top of the page. I am your co-host for Survive in Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, a 1979 NIT champion, 1981 NCAA champion, Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, and generally just a delusional old fart that hates instant replay. Help me welcome to the show, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Well, I can tell you this. We will not have a 2019 NIT champion at NIT in the NIT tournament, will we? After last night's performance against Wichita State.
I would rather not have the embarrassment of putting an NIT banner up. But we've got bigger fish to fry and eat.
All right.
But we got to catch them first.
What do we got today?
Cliff Kingsbury. He's not going to waste any time using his college coaching background to help him in the NFL, it seems. Kingsbury said Tuesday at the NFL owners meeting he'll implement cell phone breaks during team meetings. He did something similar while coaching at Texas Tech, but now he's going to adapt it to NFL players. And Kingsbury, in his defense, did say they're itching to get to those things. Kingsbury will let the players break for their phones every 20 or 30 minutes. What he called a good run right around the time he usually starts to see players lose interest. He says you start to see kind of hands twitching and legs shaking, and you know they need to get that social media fix. So we'll let them hop over there and then get back into meetings and refocus, Kingsbury said. Jesus. While coaching the Red Raiders the past 6 seasons, Kingsbury saw firsthand just how short young football players' attention spans can be. Kingsbury said the average age in the NFL is 25, not much older than the players he coached in college. Instead of them asking them to sit for long stretches, Kingsbury will be generally a moron that wants to be fired after a year by adjusting his meetings to maximize the focus. All right, Cliff Kingsbury is a dumbass, all right? Now, on top of that, Cliff Kingsbury is not just a dumbass. He's a moron. I mean, he's coaching a team, and after 20 to 30 minutes, the way he coaches is so freaking disinteresting that he has to let them have a cell phone break. Now, I don't know about you, Steve, but I want these players, tweeting and messaging as little as possible because most of them seem to not be able to handle that anyways. And I have to tell them this, but at Texas Tech, he's getting free labor. In the NFL, these guys are making millions of dollars, and if they can't concentrate on their job, maybe they shouldn't be on your team.
Is this for real?
Yeah, it's
Are you
definitely
making this
for
up
real.
to start the show off?
It's real. This is
He's
not
give
April
the
1st.
NFL players, they're in the middle of their offensive scheme setup, creating their strategy or defensive schemes, and at 20 minutes, right in the middle of the third drive, okay, cell phone break. Everybody go call your girlfriend's wives, post some stupid pictures on the internet, make a stupid comment, and then come back, and then we'll have to suspend you a day later. Seriously?
Well, how about this? The media asked Kingsbury when he gets a break to check his phone what he is looking at. And he says, my favorite app to check is ESPN.com probably. I like to look at the scores, the March Madness scores. That's about it.
Houston, we have a problem.
I'm sorry, Steve.
Phoenix, we have a problem.
Phoenix, we have a problem.
Phoenix, we have a problem. I mean, really, seriously, these guys get candy-assed and babied so much as it is anyway, and now we have to give them cell phone breaks every 15 to 20 minutes so they can go check their social media. Oh, God.
This is the saddest thing I've ever seen. And the thing that'll... Yeah, I mean, this guy with cell phone breaks at Texas Tech in 6 years had 2 winning seasons. Now he's going to go coach in the NFL. And basically...
Phoenix last year was what? 2-16, 2-14 last year, weren't they, or something like that?
Yeah, well, Steve Wilkes is sitting back there laughing his ass off because he got fired after a year, and they hire basically, it seems to be a fraternity boy who wants to come in and hang out with his buddies.
That's a recipe for failure right there. You think Belichick's going to allow cell phone breaks?
Oh, I imagine he probably will now.
I think it's a trend in the NFL now. The owners are down in Phoenix right now, aren't they? Aren't they all down there? Why don't they just make it a league policy that where's the NFLPA Players Association?
Yeah,
come out and
no
say,
blindside blocks, and we get an extra.
We'll stand up for the national.
Yeah, every quarter.
We'll stand up for the national anthem.
Every quarter, I think they should just have like an extra TV timeout, so all the guys can go check their cell phones, and then they can get like $1 billion for Verizon.
Okay, so wait, how soon do we have cell phone charging stations on the sideline?
We probably already got them. We're going to have them in Phoenix or Arizona or whatever the hell they call the team now.
But wait a minute, that is actually, you brought up a good point. You do that and put the cell phone charging stations up here and give them all, a cell phone timeout. Now we have 5 TV timeouts every quarter. Now we'll have a cell phone timeout. I mean, AT&T or Verizon or Sprint or whoever is going to be all over that one. Yeah, that's another opportunity to advertise and to make more money. Yeah. Cell phone breaks, whatever.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. I can't believe he did that in college because I don't think high schools do that. Pee-wee, I mean, you have potty breaks, but I don't think you have cell phone breaks. But this is sad, and it's why they're going to fail. They hired a guy who's in his 30s, who's been a failure at the college level as a head coach. They're going to bring him in. And right now, if I'm the owner of the Arizona Cardinals, I wouldn't waste any time. I would just go ahead and fire him right now.
Fire him right now. Well, they still have a chance to get another coach or something like that. Isn't Mike Holmgren still available or something like that?
Marvin Lewis would be a better choice than this.
Or who's the guy from Cleveland? What was his name? I can't remember his name anymore. I've forgotten.
Hugh Jackson.
Hugh
My
Jackson.
Guy.
Perfect fit. He loves it. He wanted to be everybody's buddy. I mean, he's got to go right down there. Unbelievable.
Oh yeah, he'll probably come as like the assistant head coach in charge of social media.
Cell phones. Social media.
Yeah. This is something that I would think. The first thing I did is, this is what I called you. I find this and I look at it. And the first thing I do is I look at the calendar to make sure it's not April the 1st. And by God, it's not. It's March the 27th. And Cliff Kingsbury is going to give grown men cell phone breaks every 20 to 30 minutes. You know, if I work at McDonald's, I don't get a cell phone break every 20 or 30 minutes. In an 8-hour shift, I'll get like 2 15-minute breaks and a half-hour lunch. And I don't get paid for it either, usually.
But you're a highly paid, multi-million dollar professional football player, and you've got to have, and you practice for what, 2 to 3 hours a day?
I think they limit it now, so it's only like 2 or 3 hours.
2 or 3 hours, yeah. But you're at the facility probably 4 hours a day, I would guess. By the time you get there, get taped up, go through your meetings, I would think you're probably there 4 or 5 hours a day. Would that be a fair assessment?
I don't know. I mean, they might be there longer than that a few days. You can watch the film, you get treatment and stuff. But, I mean, really, if you're there 4 or 5 hours, you have to have cell phone breaks.
I mean, we have a policy in our house out here that after 7 o'clock, we turn all the ringers off our phones. And, and I know you and I touch base. It's only because I see my phone light up and I know it's you. But other than that, I don't take any calls after 7 o'clock in the evening anymore. I just like that. Ringer goes off. I'm done with the cell phone for the night. I don't check social media. I don't do anything. It's like I'm done with it. It's like that's enough for the day. So that's amazing. Oh, well, that's hilarious. Great way to open the show up. All right, let's talk about. Have you seen the commercial with Mike Trout and Andrew Luck yet?
No, I don't watch commercials because I got fast forward.
Oh, well, it's on Twitter. It's on the internet. I saw it. They're doing a disco commercial where Trout and Luck are promoting a new Powerade drink. I think it's called Body Armor. I think is what it's called. And
yeah, Body Armor's been
hilarious.
around for a while.
Well, they've got Trout and Luck in disco clothing. I was going to ask Max about it when Max comes on, but
yeah,
you guys
Max
watch it.
Yeah, Max will be on in a little bit.
Yeah.
He had an emergency that came up he had to take care of, so I'm just waiting for him to text me. He'll be on here probably in the next minute or two, so you can go into this, and then hopefully he's ready at 12:15. We can go to commercial break and come back and get what he thinks about it.
No! I mean, it's got to watch it. It's a spoof on Saturday Night Fever, and they've got them both. I mean, it's out of character for Andrew Luck, and I don't know Mike Trout that well because I don't follow baseball that well. But it's a funny commercial. They so I just caught it this morning as I was doing some research for the show. Real quickly before we get him on, because I don't know how much he wants to address this. Robert Kraft. What do you think about Robert Kraft? What's going on? He's going to fight it. He's going to fight it.
He's going to get a jury trial. Then he's only got to pay off like one person to get a hung jury, and then he'll be good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he didn't do it, Steve. We don't know.
Yeah. They said they've got definitive video of him doing something silly. I can't define silly. I don't know what silly is because everybody has their own version.
Did they call it silly, or are you calling it silly?
I'm calling it silly because I'm trying to keep the show civil. So
okay.
It was probably something fairly deviant.
I would say call it something stupid instead of something silly.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's another way to phrase it. But what would possess a man of his wealth and his stature to go to a strip mall and go to a Oriental massage parlor and walk in? And, I mean, really, does this guy not have enough money that he can't just have people come to his home in the privacy of his own home?
Yeah, but you don't want some creep coming to your home. She might steal your stuff. Plus, your girlfriend or wife or whatever he's got, or both, may not want him to. So I would say this. Rich people tend to think they can do whatever they want.
Want to do.
You know, and he did that, and he got caught, and it's funnier than hell. But I want to know is this. Jerry Richardson, who was the owner of the Carolina Panthers, got fired and got his team taken away from him. And his were just accusations that hadn't been proven yet. So what's the difference here? Because also you had the sex slavery thing, too, that these women might have been under. And I don't know. When nobody speaks English and they're Chinese and they're doing that for a living, you just got to kind of question why they're there, I would think.
Yeah, and I guess he's going to go on the fact that he didn't know there was sex slavery involved. But it's still, I don't know. I mean, but what was funny to watch the news this morning, because they had, Roger Goodell on, and he was squirming. What do you do in this situation? I mean, do you take his team away from him? I mean, it's the most successful owner in the history of the NFL, basically. Do you take the team away from him?
I don't know. They took Jerry Richardson's team from him. The problem with Robert Kraft.
Yeah, who was the owner of the Clippers, too?
Sterling, the one that made the racist comments.
He got his team taken away from him, too. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. The Robert Kraft situation is messy, and I'm sure it was for the parlor he went to also. But, I mean, when you look at it, it's rich people with a lot of money. I mean, look at the Jussie Smollett thing. I mean, if Jussie Smollett would have been a white person that didn't have much, I mean, they would have thrown his ass in jail. But since he's got a lot of money, and he's got the right people on his side, and it helps that, he's also homosexual, which there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to do that, I don't care. But I just find it amazing the things that some people get away with, other people don't, and nobody seems to care.
Yeah, I just read about that this morning where they let him off with all 16 felony counts. They dropped them all, and that's I don't know, but that may be a product of Chicago. I don't want to get into politics or anything like that, but Chicago,
it's not politics because it's the same thing we see with Robert Kraft. If you have money, you can do what you want. I mean, come on, Ray Rice. Colin Kaepernick took a knee, and he basically got banned from the NFL. We got an owner that's going to a massage parlor, which I don't really care. As long as the women want to do it, and it's their choice, and they want to get paid that way, I don't really care. And I don't care that Robert Kraft went and got paid for it. And I guarantee you this, Robert Kraft has done a lot more devious stuff in his life than what that was. I guarantee that.
Most likely, yeah. I just think the stupidity of going to a public place in a strip mall, it's like, come on, guy, you got to be smarter than that. You own the New England Patriots. My God.
He was probably already drunk in his defense, though.
Probably, yeah. Before we get Max on, talk a little bit about Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt. Do the Chiefs have a problem? I mean, where's the problem here? When now you've got two top stars from that team getting involved in situations now, that are detrimental to the league, conduct policy and everything like that. Is this a pattern in Kansas City, or is this just an anomaly?
It's a pattern. I mean, it has to be. I mean, why would you bring Tyreek Hill to your team to begin with? This is a man that basically, when he was in college, beat up his pregnant girlfriend. Why do you want that on your team? And if you want that on your team, you've got to know that this is going to happen. I mean, when you bring in guys of questionable character, there was no reason for beating up his pregnant girlfriend. Now you got the domestic violence case with his son. The sad thing to me is, why are you allowing players like this into the NFL? We talked to Oliver Luck, who is the commissioner of the XFL, and they talked about not letting players who had committed crimes in. Now, I think there's a lot of guys in college that do a lot of stupid stuff that, kids make stupid mistakes. There's a difference between a stupid mistake and doing something as heinous as Tyreek Hill did and then getting away with it. And he got away with it. I mean, no matter what you say about it, I don't think he spent any jail time on there. The incident happened in 2014, and the bad thing is people will still wear his jersey, put his name on their back, buy it for their kids, put their kids in a jersey of a man who abuses his pregnant girlfriend. And if he's abusing his pregnant girlfriend, is it really that big a stretch to believe he's going to abuse his son a few years later? So the problem with Andy Reid...
I mean, that's my question. Is this on Andy Reid? Is this on Andy Reid? I mean, is he the one that makes the player personnel decisions?
It doesn't matter because if I'm the head coach, though, and I go to the GM and I say, I don't want this guy because of this, and he still brings that guy in, you don't have to stay and be the coach. And I guarantee you if Andy Reid went at it that way, they wouldn't have gotten Tyreek Hill. But the problem is there's too many people today that want to win at any cost. And the problem with that is you usually don't win that way. No matter what's said about the Patriots, and I know they had Aaron Hernandez at one point, when's the last time we heard about a New England Patriot that was relevant that got busted or got in trouble?
Yeah. No, yeah. I agree entirely, yeah. And then we get word that the San Francisco 49ers, their president, is now busted. Am I talking about the right team? I think it was the 49ers, wasn't it? Or no, the Giants.
Oh, what was that one? I didn't hear all that one.
I'm going to Google it real quick, just because I want to make sure I don't want to say something online that's wrong.
Yeah, guys, we've been in March Madness mode for like 2 weeks. So
yeah, exactly. So we really haven't. We're getting into baseball, but the story was, I thought I read, where he had gotten into a domestic violence situation, and the MLB had suspended him.
Okay, I thought you meant New York Giants. All right, you're talking about Larry Bear.
Larry Bear, yeah.
Yeah, he's been suspended without pay through July 1st of 2017. He's got a pre-existing leave of absence anyways. The discipline was applied after the league reviewed the facts surrounding a public altercation that was captured on video. In the course of a verbal argument, Bear attempted to retrieve his cell phone from his wife, causing her to fall to the ground. He is not expected to face criminal charges in relation to the incident.
All right, so in this day and age, Mike, and you're a coach, and I totally respect your ability and your qualifications. Should we really be looking at athletes as role models for our kids anymore?
We never should. I mean,
we never should.
Never
address
should,
that,
because I mean, this is the thing. Everybody is fallible. You know, if you have a son and you want his hero to be an athlete, that says a lot about you, because when I was growing up, my hero was my dad. You know, that's who I looked up to. That was a real person to me. The people today, I mean, even back then, I mean, what am I going to do? Look up to Pete Rose? Because everybody is fallible. Even my dad, I'm sure, was fallible. But that's who I looked up to, because I got to see every day what he did. I got to see what he did when nobody was looking. I don't know what these guys do when nobody's looking. There is no reason to have your kids look up to a man just because he could throw a ball, shoot a ball, or catch a ball. And the sad face of reality now is this, though. You've got so many kids, whether they're black or white, Mexican, whatever, that grow up with no male role model. This is what you get. And I think when you look at Tyreek's Hill family, he had a male role model in his father. Wasn't a real good one. And I think we're at a point in society right now where there's not too many people kids can look up to anymore. And you've got, it used to be the point where we've interviewed tons of athletes who, when they talk about their former high school coach, talk about how important and how like a father they were to them. And when you look at that,
My high school football coach, J.R. Bishop, was that way. I mean, I look at the two greatest role models. I never saw my father after I was 8 years old. My mom and dad divorced, and he never came back into our lives, period. I never saw him. So after we won the national championship, and then he tried to reach out to me, and I'm like, you know, I'm like a golden retriever with 3 legs. You know, I was born that way. I learned to live without the 4th leg, so I don't need this in my life right now. Don't come back to me now. So, you know, but it didn't. I turned out okay for the most part. I mean, I've got flaws, like we all have flaws, but, you know, you go that way. But, I don't get – is it just a case of entitlement for these kids that they have so much money, they got people managing their money, they don't know what to do with their money, and they think they can go anywhere, and they have celebrity, and they go in, and they just think that they can get away with anything they want to. And has social media played a role in that now, that they no longer get away with everything they want to? I mean, the incident
let's put it like this, though. I don't think that it was this bad back in the day, because you had guys like your football coach. So the question is this: if you don't have that football coach figure there when you get to be a freshman in high school, do you actually turn out as successful as what you did? Do you end up at Indiana? If you had a coach there that was only worried about winning and didn't take your well-being into effect and didn't really care about you, would you have turned out the way you did?
Yeah, no, I don't think I would have. You know, I've said this all along, and I've given many of discussions and lectures and talks and speeches, and I've always said that everybody wants to rip on Bob Knight for being Bob Knight, but nobody really understands the value of what he placed on education and discipline and learning to discipline yourself. And without Bob Knight, I don't think I ever would have been as successful in my life if I had never played for him. If I'd have gone somewhere else and just played for scoring points or money or whatever the situation was, I never would have been as successful. So
yeah, so
I think the mentoring, the coaching,
you had
yeah,
two male role
right.
models
You had
there
it.
that taught
Oh,
you
sure,
right from
definitely.
wrong. So the question
Right.
is,
Yeah.
if you have a high school coach that doesn't believe that way, and you go and you play for a school, we'll just use like Kentucky as an example, then maybe you
Okay,
don't
sure.
have that. I'm just kidding. Joe B. Hall sucked as a coach. He may have been a father to all those kids, but
I took a recruiting trip to.
hey, you know what? If you'd have played for Rick
I
Pitino,
came away better off than I went there. So
hey, put it like
I'll
this:
just leave it at that.
if you would have had Rick Pitino as your coach, he may have been a father to all you guys. But hey,
I'm not even going to go there. I had a funny line, but I'm not even going to go there.
oh, come on. As long as this doesn't have bad words in it, you can say it.
No, that's all right. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to try and be a new and improved me on
You're
this show,
such a
so I'm not going to
sissy.
go there.
Max
all right.
will be with us in about 5 minutes.
One and done
so.
players. Let's go. Let's take a look at one and done players while we're just waiting for Max to come on. One and done players, and I'll use Indiana as an example. And again, it's only because it's the team I followed the most, obviously, because we do a show on Indiana Basketball Weekly, and it's my alma mater. Was Indiana better off without Romeo Langford, who's considered a one and done player? I know you're going to say they didn't play any better, but did they get more cohesive as a team without him? And are one and done players really a liability or an asset to you in sports?
I think most programs, they're a liability. There are programs like Duke and Kentucky that recruit so well that
right.
they could get 3 or 4 of those guys every year, so they could replace them the next year. But the one thing I do know is this: we haven't seen Duke and Kentucky win a lot of national championships in the last decade doing it.
No.
And you see teams like Michigan, Wisconsin, who make constant runs, especially Michigan, to get there with 3-star players instead of 5-star players. I don't think IU played better without Romeo Langford. I think IU played in the NIT against a St. Francis team that wasn't very good, that an Arkansas team that wasn't very good. And then when they played the team that was good, that was hot in Wichita State, they got their ass kicked. You can't tell me as an IU fan that you don't think they'd have had a better chance last night with Romeo Langford on the court, because they would have. It's just the way it is. So IU fans to sit there, they're basically trying to fool themselves. And the sad thing is this: all those IU fans desperately had to have Romeo Langford last year. It had to happen. If it doesn't happen, put it like this: right now, if they would have been this exact same season with no Romeo Langford, Archie Miller might be fired just because of the heat that's put on him by the fans and the heat that's put on Fred Glass at IU and the administration, because he didn't make the tournament and he didn't get Romeo. But he got Romeo and he didn't make the tournament. So what's the difference here? I mean, you either wanted Romeo or you didn't. I think all Indiana basketball fans owe a debt of gratitude to Romeo Langford for coming there. Because since, Eric Gordon, IU had not gotten a player of Romeo's caliber. And when I watched him play, Romeo Langford is a hell of a player, but he's not a guy that's just going to take over a game. It's not his mentality. Other guys have got to do their jobs too. If you want to blame, here you go. I got one for you, Steve. If you want to blame the season and the failures on anybody, go to Devontae Green. Devontae Green, Dan Dockich will kiss his ass and tell you how he's going to score 15 or 20 points a game next year. All I know about Devontae Green is when IU started that losing streak, all right, it gets to like 4 or 5 games, and then all of a sudden Devontae Green is suspended for 3 games for reasons that nobody knows. I think in the end, Devontae Green was selfish. There were other things more important to him than his team winning. Archie Miller called it on him and suspended him. Sure, he played better when he came back, but the season was already lost. I mean, this was a team that had the talent to be a Sweet 16 team. There are issues in that locker room beyond Archie's control, because I think the problem player or players are guys that have been there before Archie got there. The best thing that can happen to Indiana right now, I think, is Devontae Green. They need to show him the door. I don't care how many points you can score. When I have to suspend you in January, when the team's like 12-5 and need you, because you're doing something that doesn't help the team, I don't see a need to have him there. And maybe he turns his life around and next year he plays his ass off and they win the national championship. But I don't want somebody on my team that doesn't put the team first all the time.
Yeah, and again, I go back to my original question. Do one-and-done players put themselves first or put the team first? I mean, I think Zion Williamson appears
Zion
to me
Williamson, I think all these guys.
He's a special kid.
I think
he's putting the team first.
90% of these guys put the team first, Steve. I think Romeo put the team first. I think when you get the back injury, it may be legit, but also the team can't accomplish anything in the NIT. I'm sorry. You can't. Nobody cares.
Oh, no, and I don't want to harp on Indiana. I just use it as an example.
But it's the perfect example because you had a kid who was one and done, who had an injury situation. He didn't play. I can tell you this. If Zion Williamson, after he blew the shoe out, didn't play again, I wouldn't have had a problem with it because he's got to take care of himself too. And the thing is this. Everybody knows what they're getting themselves into when they take a one-and-done player. And you had the kid in Vanderbilt who's going to be drafted in the NBA. He played like 10 games, showed the NBA how good he was, and then he got the hell out. That's a guy that's only worried about himself. That's a guy I don't draft. But in the end, with the money that these guys are going to make and the way they can take care of their families from here on out, once they do that, you're crazy to risk that. I mean, and if you're a teammate, Colin Hartman, as Colin said, if he played with the dude, he'd be like, dude, you can't be playing. You can't risk that. Because in the end, if you look at this, and I can't keep saying in the end, but at the end of the day, the NCAA is making a ton of money off of these kids. If the kids could go use the NCAA and one and done it, get a little bit better, up their draft stock, and go into the draft and make a lot of money, more power to them because the majority of kids playing college sports are being taken advantage of, especially at the D1 level, men's basketball and football. They're being taken advantage of. So why not, if you've got to go in and play for a year, if there's any risk, just get out. Because it's wrong to not let a kid go straight to the NBA anyways.
Let me ask you this question then. I think it's 2020 or 2021, the NBA is going to eliminate the one-and-done rule. You're going to be able to come right out of high school and just go right to college. Is that going to be better for college basketball or worse?
It'll be better. It'll be a lot better because then you'll have more guys that are 4-year players or at least 2- and 3-year players. Because right now, the big difference in college basketball now as to what it was in 1987 was this. 1987-88, I knew who the 5 starters were on Duke. And I knew who all 5 starters were on Duke in 1989 and 90 because these guys stayed. And it builds a bigger connection between the fans and the teams. Now, the one difference you have today, which may not make as big a difference, is you have a lot of people that are just fans of players. Like, I'm a Zion Williamson fan, so now I'm wearing a Duke jersey because that's the way people are today. But I think in the long run, for the universities, I mean, if you look at it, most Indiana basketball fans are going to always remember Juwan Morgan well. I mean, he's a kid that got better. He's a kid that always worked his ass off. So if he's living in Indiana, he's going to be treated really well the rest of his life because they will not forget that. Romeo Langford, he's that dude that showed up and played for a year. So
yeah, who never got to play in the dance.
Yeah,
I mean, if he leaves, he'll have never played in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, but the sad thing is this, anyway. Right now, if you're like a junior at Indiana, you've never played in the dance. So there's no guarantee if he plays here for 4 years, he's going to play in the dance.
He's going to play in the dance. All right.
Yeah, because
again, I don't want to harp on Indiana. It was not the point.
Well, you can harp on it because it's
an example.
Him and Zion Williamson are the 2 best examples of this. And the big thing is this. Zion Williamson went in with high hopes at Duke. But the hopes at Duke every year are based on the fact that Mike Krzyzewski's the coach and they are always good. The hopes at Indiana were that Romeo Langford could bring this back to the 1980s. That's a huge thing to put on a kid's shoulders. And
Definitely.
maybe if you switch the situations, if Romeo Langford goes to Duke and Zion Williamson goes to Indiana, Romeo Langford might be the player of the year right now because the expectations aren't huge. You're putting him in a situation where there's multiple guys that are as good as him. And Zion Williams would have been put here. The ball would have been thrown to him every time down, and everybody would have said, win us the national championship every time they threw him the ball.
Yeah. No, I agree entirely. And I look at programs like Michigan, Xavier. I think North Carolina has really gotten away from the one-and-done players. It seems
They haven't.
They have.
They've got like 3 that are pretty good right now.
That are going to be gone after
well,
this year, do
they bring in guys that are supposed to be one and done, but a lot of them stay for 2 and 3 years. And actually, some of the Kentucky guys are starting to do that too, which is why both of those programs have been more consistent over the last couple of years.
Right.
But,
and that's the point. You're seeing I look at Michigan, especially what Beilein's done. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of one-and-done players. Even Michigan State now doesn't have a lot of one-and-done players.
The two biggest standouts to me in all this.
I can remember.
The two biggest standouts to me in all this is over the last 20 years, probably 2 of the top 10 to 15 programs in the country are Gonzaga and Xavier. Gonzaga and Xavier will occasionally get one big stud recruit, and then that stud recruit, Trevon Blewett, is a perfect example. Blewett's a guy that could have went in the NBA draft after year 2 or 3 because people lied to him and told him that he would be drafted higher than what he was, but he stayed all 4 years. And you ended up with a Xavier team that last year they get upset in the second round of the tournament, but they were ranked in the top 5 almost all year. That's a school with 3,000 kids in it. So Gonzaga, same thing. It's a small school, but what they've done is they've got really good coaching, and with those really good coaches, those really good coaches bring in guys that are quality people. And I think that a lot of people overlook that. I mean, Duke, when they bring a one-and-done player in, Zion Williamson, to me, I don't know the kid. I don't know what he does in his spare time. He seems like a quality kid. I mean, he's a kid that when things got tough against UCF, and UCF had the, 14-foot guy there blocking all the shots, Zion is the dude that fearlessly kept attacking that guy. And one of the reasons that kid fouled out of the game. And if that kid doesn't foul out of the game, chances are when Zion chokes on the free throw and it's short, UCF rebounds the ball. And when you look at it, I mean, Mike Krzyzewski comes from Bob Knight. And the thing about Krzyzewski and Knight is you will have the occasional outlier that's a bad person that gets in trouble, ends up off the team. But for the most part, Bob Knight and Mike Krzyzewski won because they always recruited quality people. And I think the same thing can be said for John Beilein. It can be said, I mean, Louisville people freaking out right now because Chris Mack lost in the first round of the tournament. Most of those Louisville people didn't think they had a chance to even make the tournament. But the thing about Chris Mack is he'll bring in good, hard-nosed kids that'll fight their ass off. And in the next 3 years or so, you will see a Chris Mack basketball team at Louisville, and they'll consistently be in the top 5 in the ACC because that's what he brings to the program. And with that being said, I think it's the same thing you're going to see with Archie at Indiana. I mean, there's not the only questionable character on that team is Devontae Green. He wasn't recruited by Archie. If you look at the guys Archie's brought in, no problems. Calvin Sampson. We hear this argument all the time. Would IU be better off if they had Calvin Sampson? Well, people forget. Calvin Sampson brought in Eric Gordon, who was probably the best player Indiana's had this century, or he's up there pretty high. He was a baller. And Kelvin Sampson did some things that he shouldn't have done. But in the end, I think Sampson was done in because the people at Indiana wanted to bring the basketball program down a notch, and they did. But the other thing about Sampson that brought him down was the recruits that caused the problem for Kelvin Sampson were guys Mike Davis brought in. Because you had the drugs and the alcohol issues that came out with a couple of those players while Sampson was there. But those were not guys Calvin Sampson brought in. So I think Sampson gets a little bit of a raw deal there. I think he did some stupid stuff that he knew he wasn't allowed to do. Whether it was really cheating or not is not the problem. The problem is he knew he wasn't allowed to do it, and he still did it, so he probably should have been fired. But when you look at the program he's got at Houston right now, they all seem to be good kids. They play well together, and I think Houston has a legitimate chance to go to the Final Four.
I agree. And also right now out here in Los Angeles, Sampson's name's being tossed around a lot for UCLA.
I don't know why Sampson wants those kind of problems.
Well, I don't know why you want to go to UCLA. I think UCLA is a hellhole. I don't think it's
Well, they've been very successful since Walton, or since Wooden. It's just the last 10 years that they've dropped off the face of the map.
To me, it's a great thing because I think as soon as the season's over, Luke Walton's gone at the Lakers, and I think UCLA is a great fit for Luke Walton. That's a perfect marriage right there, as far as I'm concerned. But if I was Kelvin Sampson, I would stay where I am. Alford made the same mistake. He should have never left New Mexico. He had a good gig there.
Because in New Mexico, you make the NCAA tournament 2 out of 4 years. Everybody loves you.
Everybody loves you, right? Yeah. Then he comes out here, and the pressure on him is just overwhelming. And it's always been questionable about Steve's direct coaching ability in terms of X's and O's of the game. I think he's a good leader, but in terms of X and O's, but now Sampson's name's being thrown around Los Angeles all of a sudden. Now I'm hearing it on the news, local news out here, as rumored to be being kind of courted by UCLA to come out here. And, I probably of the last coaches that ever have coached since Knight, I got to know Sampson better than anybody. I actually talked to him several times and got to know him. He was a class guy. I mean, what his internal workings were, I don't know, but he always treated the former players with great respect, and he always asked us questions about how to get things done. He wanted the former players involved, and I think that builds back to what you said about the family thing like that. And Trayvon Blewett, I coached against him and his dad. His dad had a team called Team Tempo. We had the Wizards, and we played them often in AAU tournaments and things like that. They generally always beat us because they just have more talent than we did. But his dad was class, and Trayvon was always class too. He always came over and shook my hand, and his dad always, and that dad and I got along really well. I go back to Michigan, like Zach Irvin, another kid that I coached, some in high school, went to Michigan with Beeline. So I think programs that recruit quality players, are going to succeed. But I think the one and done thing is when they get rid of that rule and let the players, the guys that want to go play NBA, let them go play NBA. I think you get back to more good college basketball teams.
Well, you can't keep kids from making a living, even if they're only 18
No,
years old.
I agree entirely. Yeah. Geez, if you can get it, go get it, because you can bust your knee up in 5 minutes and then you're done. And if you've got a $10 million cut, look at Greg Oden. I mean, Greg Oden's the perfect example of that, from Lawrence North and Ohio State.
Yeah.
And he went out and tore the hell out of his knees, got a big contract from Portland, I think it was.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Wasn't Portland?
Yeah, just think,
and
though.
If he'd have done
that 5 games into his college career, he's out everything.
Yeah, he's out. Yeah, everything. Yeah. All right. While we're waiting for Max.
Well, we're not going to wait for Max anymore because we're going to run out of time anyways. I just texted him that we'll reschedule him. I know he does have some major issues. Max wouldn't be here if it wasn't something professionally. So is there anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I got a couple more things in because I was going to save him for Max, but we'll just go on. AAF, XFL. XFL is now starting to announce presidents. I think they got a female president for the Los Angeles team. Not that really matters. I mean, if she's qualified to run the team, run the team. They're starting to announce some coaches. What's your take on the AAF? Is it a success so far? Or I haven't seen much on them since the opening 2 weeks. It's been kind of quiet. I think they're about 6 or 7 games into the season now. I thought I saw Orlando was like 6-1.
Sure they are. I don't know what the hell they are, Steve. I lost interest too.
Okay.
I think
okay. All right.
What I said after a week or two was this. After the Super Bowl, people still want to watch football for about a week or two. And
Mhm.
then people want to do other things. They want to watch other things. And I mean, the quality of play outside of 2 or 3 teams, I don't think is really high level, especially with the quarterbacks. Um, I mean, come on. Anytime you got Marvin Lewis as one of the color guys, I mean, come on. Why would you want Marvin Lewis as a color guy?
You don't like Marvin Lewis.
I mean, maybe when they were, maybe they put a job posting up. Marvin's looking around the internet and he sees colored guy wanted. Because that's the only way I can see that he would think that he was qualified for that, because he's horrible at speaking. He has no personality, and he's not a color guy. I mean, I think Steve Spurrier, the Orlando Apollos have done a great job. They put together a really good team. I think Arizona, they've put together a good team. Birmingham. Other than that, though, excuse me, I just don't see a whole lot here. And, I mean, it's decent football, but you cannot have a football league during March Madness. I mean, nobody's going to watch it.
Right. And NASCAR.
Sure. All right.
Okay. XFL. I mean, who's going to get the better players? Is XFL going to have more pizzazz and draw? And are they going to get, because, you're going to get the mid-range players are going to start getting cut from the NFL and whatnot, and the higher quality players. Who's going to end up with the higher quality players? Is the AAF still working to try and be the NBA G League of the NFL?
I think they would be all right with that. I don't know that the XFL would. I give the XFL a better chance, I think. I mean, right now, I don't know enough of the particulars to throw it in and see.
Okay.
Because
Fair.
I don't know who their TV contract's with. I've heard it was going to be something big. Like I said, I've been paying mainly attention to March Madness, so I'm not really sure what's going on there. But according to the TV contract, because to me, I think a TV contract with the NFL Network on it is a bad idea, because it makes them look like they're a minor league of the NFL.
But if that's what they're shooting for, I mean, I think the sustainability.
Yeah, but the thing is this:
is better than the XFL because they're going to get backing by the NFL.
Yeah, but the thing is this: the NFL also backed, the World League of American Football. They backed it until they got tired of losing money, and then they got out of it.
Yeah.
I think people are more likely to watch a league that's not connected to the XFL, that is trying to be different than the NFL, than they are looking at a knockoff minor league. Because minor league sports, are there any minor league sports that do great TV rankings?
No, none that I know of. I don't. I mean, I don't hardly. Yeah, no, none that I can say. No, I can't even say Xfinity Series in NASCAR, because every time I watch that, there's nobody at the track or anybody doing even that. I thought that would be the best example of where, the secondary series in NASCAR, but nobody shows up for that either, and they don't do well. You only watch that when there's nothing on Saturday afternoon. Okay, one last thing, then I know we'll get off here. Let me run down some names for you in the free agency thing here. Antonio Brown. Deal or bust?
It's a deal. I don't know if it'll work out
Deal?
in Oakland, because I don't know if John Gruden will make it work. But if I'm the Raiders, I'd take a shot at it. And he's the perfect Raider. He's a troublemaker that likes to bitch. Those usually turn out, at least back in the 70s, that would turn out good. Guys like John Matuzak and them, they all worked out. Jim Plunkett went from the scrap heap to turning it around there. They've had a lot of guys like that. So I think in the end, I think it's worth a shot.
Odell Beckham.
What about him?
Deal or bust?
He went to Cleveland,
I mean,
right?
Cleveland.
All
He
right.
went to Cleveland. He's got Baker Mayfield with him. I mean,
my take on Cleveland is this: with Cleveland luck, they're all hurt by week 2, anyways. But yeah, I think this. I think it's a good deal for the Giants, because the Giants can put some more pieces together as long as they draft well, make their team better. I think it's good for the Browns because you got Beckham and Landry with what I think is a top quality quarterback throwing them the ball. They've got excellent running backs. The offensive line I still think is a problem, but a good draft could take care of the offensive line for them. Um, so I think it was a dynamic move to get a dynamic player. And the more dynamic players you have, the better. And with him, Landry, David Njoku, who's the tight end, and Nick Chubb, I think it's a good addition. This is going to come down. I think you also had Sheldon Richardson, who got signed by them. They didn't lose anything really bad. So the only thing they've done is improve their team, and I think they have to be the favorites in the AFC North right now.
Over Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh lost Bell and Brown. That's a lot to replace. Yeah. That's 2/3 of your triplets.
And we'll get to Le'Veon Bell. Yeah, we'll get there. The move. I don't know. Cleveland doesn't need attendance. They sell out pretty much every game anyway. And that's a rabid fan base.
They don't. Their rabid fan base is shit.
They don't? Okay.
No, hell. They actually, the last home game they played to go above 500 was, I think, the first December sellout they'd had in years there.
Okay. All right. Nick Foles to Jacksonville. Deal or bust?
I think it's a great deal for Jacksonville. I just don't think they have the coach and the rest of the team to win with him. And I think in the AFC South, that division is loaded. If the Texans make some decent moves, Titans, the Colts have already made a good move with Justin Houston. I mean, right now, to me, that division is the Colts' division to lose, but we haven't had a draft yet either. Because I still think the Texans, with a good draft or maybe a trader here or there, still could possibly be the best team in that division. But I think this is a Colts or a Texans division.
Blake Bortles to the Rams. I mean, that good move. He just becomes a backup now?
Well, I mean, you've already got a backup at starter. You might as well have a backup at backup.
There you go. All
because
right,
I don't think this team makes the playoffs next year. Because I think Todd Gurley has issues.
The Rams?
No, I don't think the Rams make the playoffs. And if they do, they'll squeak in as a wild card because I think Todd Gurley, with the arthritis and everything, he's a running back. When injuries like this start, they usually don't stop real quick. They've lost some key pieces. They've brought in some key pieces. But Jared Goff is a guy that if he doesn't have a big-time running game to set up his play-action passing, he's not a good enough quarterback. This is a kid that was never under center until he got to the NFL. His footwork's not very good. He doesn't read defenses very well. I mean, New England tied him in knots. If they can't run the ball, they're not going to be successful. And if Gurley is hurt, they can't. And the other thing we saw is if Gurley's healthy, like against the Bears, I mean, he ran the ball like 20 times for 24 yards against the Bears, and the Rams got destroyed at Soldier Field because once the running game is stopped, non-existent, Jared Goff's useless, and he was useless in the Super Bowl, and he's never going to win a Super Bowl.
There you go. All right, let's talk about the big three in baseball. Your opinion on this. Trout, Harper, and Machado. Let's start with Trout. $430 million for 13 years. The guy's 27 years old. He's going to be 40, and I think most of that's all guaranteed money, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd assume it's baseball, so baseball guarantees it all.
Good guarantees it all, yeah. Is that a good deal? I mean, I know Mike Trout right now, I know you're going to tell me he's the best player in baseball right now, but didn't we learn a lesson from A-Rod? And the 10-year, $250 million deal he got, I think the Yankees are probably still paying this A-Rod.
The Reds are still paying King Griffey Jr., I think, until like 2021 or so.
So, I mean, is he worth $430 million, or is it just we just want Mike Trout? Who's a great player right now.
I guess this.
He's probably the best player in the game.
I guess I could say this for any of these players. If somebody will give it to you, it's worth it. It's just like my son will come tell me, well, this was on eBay, and they're like asking $380 for it. And I'm like, did anybody buy it at that? Because it doesn't matter what you ask. It matters what you could get. The thing about Mike Trout is he's not only the face of the Angels, he's probably the face of Major League Baseball right now. And
Okay.
he is the best baseball player currently playing. So it may be crazy, but he's the face of baseball. And right now, he's only 27. Um, I mean, so really, his peak years, I would think, would be 29 to 33. So actually, if you wait a year or two, somebody's going to offer even more money, and they're going to be the ones that get the bad deal because they're not going to get 5 or 6 prime years out of him. The Angels will get 5 or 6 prime years out of him.
Yeah. Bryce Harper,
I don't like
Phillies.
I think he's
Not a good
overpaid,
investment or
but
not?
he's worth it because somebody will give it to him. But with Bryce
Yeah,
Harper,
yeah.
Bryce Harper is not the complete deal like Trout is. I think Harper, you got to worry about what's between his ears a little bit more. Mike Trout to me is a guy that you could have thrown him in the 1950s. He could have hung out with Mickey Mantle and Joe DiMaggio and been fine. Bryce Harper, he's a streaky player. You get what you get, and I'd much rather have Mike Trout, even at more money.
I would agree with you there. From what little, again, I'm not a baseball aficionado, but I would think that, yeah, that'd be in Manny Machado, goes 40 miles south of San Diego, leaves the Dodgers. The Dodgers lose anything there, really. I didn't see his production all that great in L.A.
Well, I mean,
watching
he
the Dodgers
obviously
play last year.
play. I think he's probably better off in San Diego where there's less of a spotlight on him. I think it's worth it for them if they can pull off one thing. You get another signing next year, and then next year you make Bruce Bochy the manager. If you could pull that off, you could win something. Now, Machado has been a problem before, so you've got to watch that also. There's no trade language in the deal, but I think what you could end up is this: the Padres will end up either being really good with him, or they'll have issues with him, and the next thing you know, you'll hear rumors that he's going to be traded to the New York Yankees.
Yeah, I can kind of see Machado ending up in the Yankees. I can kind of see that happening.
Yeah, but if the Padres have the money, and they do, and they make the right player picks, I think they could be a contender for the next 5 or 6 years because they've got a really good farm system right now. So I don't think this is that big of a stretch to risk it.
Yeah, and I think he was the least expensive of the three, wasn't he? I think they got him the cheapest of the three.
Yeah, but
he was right around 300.
Yeah, he's also the older player, and he's not white, and it helps to be white because, and that's not a racist statement. It's just the fact that a white guy in Anaheim is going to make more money than a guy named Machado in San Diego.
There you go. Well, that's all I had in questions that I thought we were going to discuss today with Max, who unfortunately, had pressing issues he had to deal with. Anything you want to add or talk about?
Yeah, I do. I want to talk about the history and the story of Loyola basketball, more than a shot and a prayer. We had Fred Mitchell was supposed to be on the show yesterday, and I appreciated Fred and John Bogdahl, his PR guy, who sent me this copy of this book a few weeks ago. And John, his PR guy, has begged and pleaded for us to have Fred on the show to talk about his book. And yesterday, he was supposed to be on to talk about his book. Now, Fred is a great writer, 41 years with the Chicago Tribune. But the problem was this. When Fred was supposed to be on, which is why we ran a repeat, which probably got like 10 times more listeners than Fred Mitchell would have anyways, because let's face it, outside of Chicago, who the hell knows who Fred Mitchell is? But that's not the point. The point is, we tried to call Fred because he was supposed to be on the show. And he knew he was going to be on the show a week ago, and I specifically told them 12 noon Eastern. They said, all right. I tried to call him like 4 times, never answered. I messaged his publicist, who tells me, try him again. So I tried him for the 5th time. Still no Fred. And then his publicist gets a hold of me. I can't get a hold of him either. He must think 12 Central Time. Now, I put 12 Eastern. Fred didn't want to be on. The History of Loyola Basketball is a well-written book, but I found it boring when I tried to read it last night. So I'm really not that upset that Fred Mitchell wasn't on the show. But I'm just venting here because if you want to sit here and beg to be on our show and send us a book and then you don't come on, that's fine because I know things happen. But maybe that publicist could have sent us a message of apology last night, or maybe Fred himself could have sent us a message. He's got my phone number. I never heard a word from him. So, in the end, I'd say don't buy that book. What do you think, Steve?
Well, and the only thing I'll say is this: is that I got up Los Angeles time around 4:30 to research it because it's 3-hour time difference out here. So when we're going to do a show at 9 o'clock my time, 12 your time, so I wanted to make sure I was up to speed. And essentially, Loyola, other than 2 good years, really is kind of a mediocre basketball program. Anyway.
Oh, they're not even mediocre. They're like IU today.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking I got to come up with questions now to talk about 63 and 62 when they won I think they went to the NIT and lost, or they may have won.
They won the
NIT,
NCAA championship in '63.
Then the next year they won the NCAA with Jerry Hartness. But Jerry Hartness is a great man.
Great player,
he actually lived 5 houses down from me when I lived in Indianapolis at one point in time. And he was a newscaster in Indianapolis for a long time and just a class gentleman. I mean, not a nicer man in the world than Jerry Hartness that I've ever met.
He would let us know if he couldn't be on.
He would have let us know, but yeah. So, but I the amount of research I put into trying to, I didn't have the privilege of having a free copy of the book, so I was kind of going off of research.
Don't worry,
why I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning. Yeah, I'm thinking, there you go. But that stuff happens in this industry. You take it with a grain of salt, and you go on and you move forward. So,
in like 4 years,
what do we have tomorrow?
In 4 years, I think it's the first time that's ever happened. Because we've had guys that had to cancel before or forgot, and then they apologize and we have them on again. Yeah. Tomorrow, what do we have? I don't know. Are we starting an hour earlier?
I'm working on that. Yes, we're working on Sarah Uran is going to come on. It's opening day of baseball, correct?
And I'm going to try to get Graham McGowan on. We'll have Sarah, Graham,
so we're
and
talk
Bobby.
Baseball tomorrow. Yeah,
we'll talk baseball at 11 o'clock tomorrow, from 11 o'clock Eastern to 12 o'clock Eastern, and then we'll wrap it up because I am going to Louisville to cover the NCAA Regionals, and Bobby is headed to Anaheim to cover the NCAA Regionals. And if you would like to cover some NCAA Regionals at some point in the next few years, drop us a line at Grueling Truth if you're interested in writing or being a podcaster. Anything else, Steve?
I'm done. I got every question that I had written down for you guys today answered. So I had a great show.
All right, and we'll set up Max again probably after the week after next week, because next week we will devote probably specifically all 5 days, at least 4 to 5 days, to college basketball and the Final Four coming up. Want to remind everybody that you can hear the Inside Boxing Daily Show tonight at 11 o'clock. And let's see, the NASCAR show, will that be up tonight, Steve, or will that be up in the morning?
Yes, we will have a NASCAR show up tonight. Whenever you decide to post it, we'll post it. But there's been a big schedule change in the NASCAR. They've revamped the schedule entirely, moved a bunch of the races around. And for all of you that pay attention to NASCAR, it means something. To everybody else, it means nothing. But all the drivers are happy about it. And everybody seems to think it's a good move by NASCAR. And we'll talk about that tonight on the NASCAR show. I don't want to give a lot of that away here.
All right, and we'll be back tomorrow at 11 o'clock Eastern for Survivor.
And we have our final IU Basketball Weekly show tonight.
Do we for sure?
Before we get in,
message Colin yet.
Okay.
We may have it tonight, but if you're an IU fan, It'll either be tonight or tomorrow night. Well, it won't be tomorrow night, so it'll be tonight. We're doing it one way or the other. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to remind everybody you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you find sports podcasts. You'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.